Intelligent and industrious, highly skilled in medicine and technology, with a creative, innovative and visionary idea and an unorthodox way of thinking. Able to set priorities, identify partners and bring to life their groundbreaking concepts and solutions that fight diseases and improve human happiness and well-being. Healthcare hackers for the greater good. Do you want to become one? EIT Health InnoStars presents real healthcare hackers, the winners of the EIT Health RIS Innovation Calls for 2019 and 2020. In this podcast series, they share their experiences, the opportunities they identified, and the challenges they had to overcome. Listen in.
Hello everyone, my name is Andrew Wrobel and I have the pleasure to be your host. My guest today is Marius Rus, the co-founder and the CEO of a startup called Tully. Tully is a wearable device helping children recognize and manage their emotions. Marius, welcome to Healthcare Hackers.
Hi, Andrew. Thank you so much.
How's it going?
Not bad, actually. It's good.
That's good. So let me start by asking you a couple of questions related to the startup. When I spoke to the founder and CEO of another startup in Estonia, that was the latest episode, he told me that his wife actually played a significant role in setting up his startup. She was the one who actually came up with the name. And I know that in your case, there's also that female aspect, meaning your wife helped you as well. Can you tell us a little bit more here?
Yes, absolutely. So actually, she didn't only help. She's also a co-founder, and she's part of the startup. And she generated the idea here. So we were both in the US several years ago. I was doing my MBA with UC Berkeley, and because she was not allowed to work on account of work visa, she started to volunteer in the local school. Her background is economics. She has a PhD in economics, and she teaches investments and micro and macroeconomics at Cluj-Napoca Babeș-Bolyai University. But she said, okay, I need to do something. I cannot stay at home for a couple of years. And by chance, she started working with a child with severe ADHD, attention deficit and hyperactivity disorder. And she realized that she's really good at helping them and I don't know, getting them calm. And I think that, I don't know, one thing led to another, and within several weeks, she was enrolled in a class of, I don't know, training as a volunteer school counselor. And then by the end of these 2 years, she was working with all 3 schools in the Albany School District in San Francisco. And then when we came back to Romania, she realized that she really likes the area. She likes the activity. So she went through the Faculty of Psychology. She got herself a master's degree in child psychology and development, and started actually working with children, helping them get their emotions under control.
And what was the solution, or what is the solution that you have come up with?
So basically what happens is that in a case of ADHD is a condition which is defined by several types of behaviors. And one of the most prevalent and most damaging for the children from the perspective of, I don't know, social acceptance and whatnot is the hyperactivity. They have a really low impulse control, and they do react to stress in a different way than, I don't know, other people. So as the stress of, I don't know, intellectual challenge accumulates, their level of agitation grows. And the problem for them is that they cannot, it takes a volunteer, so it takes intention to stop them acting on their reaction, especially when they're highly agitated. They do want to do that. So all the children that we talked to in the last 3 years know that they need to get the behavior and the reaction under control, and they want to do it. They also know what to do about it, because again, we are starting from for the narrowest part of the area on children that are already doing some kind of therapy. So they know what to do. It's not very difficult for them to do it, but they don't know when they need to do it. And this is something that until now was either learned in years and years of just, going to therapy and discussing with the psychologist and going through everything and trying to figure out when was the point where they should have done something, or by being helped by a school counselor that has to be present, has to be there, has to see the child, and has to be able to interact with your child and notify them that if something is getting you agitated and you should do something about it. Just by working with them, and my wife Adina was doing exactly that, and we realized that maybe we can find a digital solution to this, to replace or to enhance the school counselor presence by having a device, a wearable that can track a lot of things that the school counselor can, and also a bunch of things that the school counselor is not able to see or detect them immediately, and be able to alert the child of what happens. So this is what Tully, our product, does. It's a wearable, it's a bracelet that sits on the child's hand, and it tracks their physiological indicators, and it detects the rise in agitation that might lead to an emotional flare, to basically an explosive event in which all behavior gets completely out of control. And before that happens, the device notifies, so it alerts the wearable, it vibrates on the child's hand, and this is, I think, the most important part of what it does, because it distracts the child from the stressor, and it basically lets the child know that yes, now is the moment. Then you should get things under control. Of course, it also guides the child afterwards. So there's patterns of vibration, patterns of LED lights that work, and then they can guide the child through biofeedback back to control if it's needed, if it's not enough just a simple vibration at the right moment. And also, of course, we do collect the data, and the therapists and the psychologists are really excited about the possibilities that can be opened by having the possibility, being able to look into the actual emotional roller coaster that happened in one of these children's life across, a couple of days or a week even.
What I would like to ask you now about is, any challenges that you've gone through over, the time that since you started developing the device. It's when you have a device pretty much ready, it's always easy to say, okay, for those who are, who just see the device, that it's a straight path that led to it. But in fact, there's hard work, and there's a lot of challenges that you always have to overcome.
What we did do, and I'm not sure it's necessarily the best way to do when we're trying to build a startup, was to we kept on going, but we dialed it down. The effort involved while we were trying to figure out diverse things. So we went on an extreme bootstrapping way, in which all the co-founders continued with their day jobs, and in the same time we developed our product. And that happened for about 2 years out of the 3 and some since we've been active. And I think that the most important or the most difficult challenges were, one was finding the right talent, finding the right co-founders. Because when we started, as I said, the idea came from my wife, and she was bringing the psychology part, and I've been working with startups in strategy and in building go-to-market plans and building financing plans for a number of years after my graduation from Berkeley. So that part was covered, but we needed somebody, or more than one somebody, to actually build the device, because it's a hardware. It involves both hardware and software. we had to do it also the hardware part, because nothing off the shelf was included all the sensors that we needed. So it took us, I don't know, probably a year and a half to find the right team and to get through. We got through 3 different sets of potential co-founders until we found the ones that were aligned with us, that clicked with us, and that were also inspired by the idea, and they wanted to do something about it, and they were willing to put down work without a very clearly visible result in the future. Because, as I said, for about 3 years we did this almost as from passion, almost as a hobby, because it was really unlikely to. I mean, not necessarily unlikely, but we were so far away from the point in which we could go for fundraising, and we could go to get support, that we decided, okay, we'll push it as far away as we can by ourselves, and then we'll go talk to other people. So this was, I think, the first challenge. The second challenge came with the area, with the industry. It's hardware and it's hard. And as I said, I've been working with startups for a bunch of years, but this was my first venture in the hardware space. And it's also, besides being hardware, is medical devices. So it's double or quadruple hard, and it takes much longer. Everything takes much longer and costs more than when you're doing something that's purely physical. And we realized that from really small mistakes, like I don't know, we bought a new microcontroller, and somehow the microcontroller did not connect correctly with one of the sensors, and we realized that on prototype version 4 we have, instead of being better than version 3, we have no access whatsoever to one of the sensors. And it took us 2 weeks to realize why, and because it was a description, a very technical aspect that was buried in the, I don't know, page 83, row 17, and it was just half a sentence that was explaining why we got that strange results. And then when we realized that, okay, we said, okay, we'll change it. We take a new microcontroller that has all the necessary features, but we realized that, okay, but in that case we need to also change the architecture of the PCB, and we have to wait. Besides for the microcontroller to come, we have to wait for new PCBs to be manufactured, and that was before COVID, and the cost was the most important part. So we were doing it in China, so we had to wait for another 3 weeks for the Chinese to complete, to our Chinese partners to finish our batch of 10 or 15 PCBs and send them to us. So it took us much longer than it would have taken if it were just a bug in the software, in a software product that you can debug it and you can replace it, you can solve it in several days. And this is, as I said, the second biggest challenge. And I think the third was something that hit everybody this year. So we really were hit by the COVID. We weren't expecting to be hit, and at first it was just I don't know, the connections with the suppliers in China, with the suppliers of parts were sketchy, and we had to, I don't know, to go for more expensive European stuff or to redesign some of the product because the dimensions were different, and that was pretty much expected. But the problem was then when everybody entered lockdown, we were about to launch our large scale testing. And this testing involves observing school children in their I don't know, natural environment, so in school, and having an observer present with them. And of course, school stops, and everybody was in lockdown, so no chance of having, I don't know, observing somebody doing their homework, and nobody was really thinking correctly about homework, and the level of, I don't know, stress and I don't know, fear was at max everywhere. So that practically stopped us for about 6 months. We restarted now because we are actually we have a European grant that is supporting this project, and we restarted this part now. Actually, I think a week and a half ago, we had the first discussions with the parents, and we started to work with the children initially one-on-one, and actually one-on-one because it's with the psychologist present. And we're waiting to see how the school opening works, and if we can find a solution in which to have this testing within the classroom as we intended. But as I said, our initial plan was to have this testing in between April and May, and it looks like we're going to be doing it in October, maybe November.
I was actually going to ask you about COVID because it seems like, it has affected pretty much everyone. And especially if you are in a sort of testing period, then, you are unable to do certain things. You mentioned funding as well. And I wanted to ask you about, the EIT support here, because it's not always easy to apply for funding like that. Can you share your experience when it comes to applying for the funding?
Yes, absolutely. So, in our case, it's a little bit different because, I listened to a couple of episodes of the podcast, and it's a bit different because applying for funding and helping entrepreneurs secure funding is something that I have been doing before starting this this company. So, and the business part was really there for us. We actually started from there rather than starting from the product and going towards the business. So it is different. What we did was, first of all, we decided that we won't try to go through financing and get financing until we are actually ready, until we can show something that proves that we really have something in our hand. Maybe it's not the right solutions for everybody, but it definitely works best to do it like that rather than go with an idea. Another thing that we did was we initially focused on accelerators, and before this grant that we got, we went through another EIT program, the GE Healthcare Venture Lab in Budapest last year, which is really good, and it was a really good experience for us. It's at least at the last year or in 2019. It was a very diverse experience. There were about 30 startups, and they were all across the range from where they are with the product or the business. So we had companies that were just figuring out how their idea can be used. There were companies like us that were already in prototype phase, and they were testing, and they had initial results and had something that they felt it was okay. And there were also startups that were already launched on the market, and they were revenue generating. And the focus of the accelerator was pretty much split. For the ones that were already launched, it was more towards getting traction, but in the same time, we and the young, as in startup age companies we benefited a lot from the focus on product market fit. And it was, as I said, great, and it was great to be able to get the first contact with the entire healthcare ecosystem in Europe, because there were companies from Lithuania, from Spain, from Norway, from Hungary, of course. There were a couple of other companies from Romania. So there was a lot of a lot of presence, and international presence, and regional presence there. And another thing that I realized, but both from my direct experience, but also by seeing the other teams, were that it's the business side of a startup is really important, especially when you're going to get financing, whether it's getting it from angel investors or getting it from a grant. It's very important to be able to have something that makes sense from a business perspective. Yes. And actually, even from us, that we started from business, and we started from from a need that we identified, but then we went basically all the way through how can we transform that into a business before actually having the product in our hand. Even for us, it took a lot of fine-tuning and adjusting to get something that we feel it's going to work from that perspective, and that is considered acceptable by the investors, by the potential investors, and by the investors that eventually went in and invested in us.
This is a very good point, I think, because startups oftentimes actually neglect this business element. And if you're telling, if you are actually an example of a startup that looked at it at the very beginning, and yet you find it extremely important, that shows how important, in fact, it is.
Yes, actually, and I'm always I kept on working with other startups from time to time, and I'm actually advising everybody that having a co-founder that has the responsibilities and the skills in the business side is equally important that having somebody that's doing the tech side, because otherwise you just end up with a product, and it can be a great product, but unless you can transform it into a business, it's very unlikely that you'll be able to do something with that.
So where are you with the project right now? What's the next step?
So at this moment, we are basically a little bit further away than we were in let's say in April. So that's the COVID situation. We already started the large scale testing. What we want here is to accumulate a sufficient number of hours and to create a scientific basis for our claims that Tully works. And in this case, we are working with the Faculty of Psychology in this EIT Health project to do everything. And then once that is done, we are planning to launch our product through a crowdfunding campaign. We're hoping to do it either at the end of this year or very early next year, and have everything together and be able to actually put it in the market and start helping children, manage their day-to-day issues. Because until now we've been working and we've been developing and we've been improving it, and it kind of feels like it's much better than it was even 6 months ago, but it's still only for us at this moment.
Marius, I wish you all the best with the project. It looks and sounds very impressive. Thank you very much for all the insights today.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
This was Healthcare Hackers. Stay tuned to the next episode, subscribe to the podcast, and leave a review. And don't forget to check out our EIT Health InnoStars website for more info about the EIT Health RIS Innovation Calls and other opportunities and stories.